Welcome back, guys, to the channel. I'm Jake ELLENBOGEN, and today we'll be talking about Loki Episode 3 as part of the Loki TV series review and recap series on my channel. Before we get into it, be sure to subscribe, drop a comment, and leave a like if you enjoyed the video. We'll get right into it without wasting any time. Loki has been an incredible experience for me. I've enjoyed every second of watching what is pretty much like a 6-hour movie turned into a mini series with unbelievable, in my opinion, great casting, but unbelievable job with storytelling, setting, things along that nature, a ton of Easter eggs. So let's just get right into episode 3, which is called Lementis, and I did read that is actually Latin for lamenting. So this is a good title because if you do not know, this whole episode is about lamenting. Loki laments his upbringing with Frigga and Odin, and of course Lady Loki, also known as Sylvie, laments basically her upbringing. So we get into it early on. We see from a different perspective here. It is the agent that Sylvie, well, now called Sylvie, before Lady Loki, we assumed. Lady Loki has mind controlled, enchanted, what have you. So the TVA agent, we see exactly how it's all perceived, how everything is done by Lady Loki at the beginning. So it kind of shows. It's a little bit of a preview of what was happening in the last episode. Doesn't take place immediately, right in the current events, but it does show you that, oh, okay, this agent was on Earth. She was an Earthling, and now she works for the TVA. So that's something interesting there. We move right into it. Right after the events of episode 2, we saw the portal. Loki and Lady Loki. Loki joined Lady Loki in that portal. That portal actually was going back to the Time Variance Authority HQ, which does prove my theory to be true. Those time bombs were not to necessarily start a multiverse. It was used as a distraction to get the TVA all away from the TVA headquarters, have them go fix the time bombs and the timelines and restore. And while that's happening, Sylvie could just swoop right in with no guarding whatsoever, leaving the TVA wide open for her to do whatever she wants, take out the timekeepers, what have you. That plan actually gets foiled by Loki, who at this point seems fairly, I guess the best way to put it is he's just conflicted. You can see Loki does want to, help Sylvie in a sense, but on top of it, Loki also doesn't really trust Sylvie yet anyway, and still does kind of like Mobius enough to want to carry out this mission. So Loki, of course, gets his daggers that were taken away from him by one of the TVA officers earlier in episode 2, gets the daggers as you see in the trailer, goes after Sylvie, stops her, but before that happens, we do get everybody, well, at least some of the TVA stopping Loki. And this is an interesting point in this, because at this point Loki is kind of on the TVA side, and the TVA is willing to just say, I don't care what happens to him, I don't care what happens to you. So I found that was really interesting there. Nonetheless, Loki ends up teleporting them using the the tempad, which is what it's called throughout the entire show, or the entire episode. And Loki uses the tempad to send them to 2077, which is Lementis, the planet. It's a Kree homeworld, or a Kree planet, one of the Kree planets. So as as we get forward through this TV series, we're starting to notice more and more and more that Marvel is trying to set up the cosmic universe, because right now it exists, but the fans, at least just part of the MCU fans and not necessarily the comic book fans, they don't know exactly everything that's going on with the cosmic world. So right before we get into, these events like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and the Marvels movie that's coming out with, you have Captain Marvel and Miss Marvel, right before all of that comes out, it's important for them to touch on the cosmic world. And so I think they're doing a nice job using Loki to do that, because obviously we didn't get really much of that with WandaVision. We got none of that, just kind of a hint, nudge, during Falcon Winter Soldier. So this is really cool. It's a different type of theme. And so we see them on Lementis, and, right off the cuff, we see that this is once again kind of following the theme of the second episode, the last episode we left off on, that Loki, or rather Lady Loki, or rather Sylvie, is hiding in all of these different apocalyptic events. And so in the TemPad, she had basically downloaded all of these apocalyptic events, and that is where she was traveling to. As she points out, she basically calls Loki an idiot because he just basically sent them to the worst one, as she puts it. It's the end of Lementis as we know it. As we can see, there's all sorts of meteorites crashing down. It's the end of the world, so to speak. And Loki makes a joke later on in the episode that it is the end of the world. They come across a straggler here, someone that is not, afraid to die, but for whatever reason is wielding a thunder gun like weapon. I don't even know what to call it, but if you ever play Call of Duty Black Ops, zombies, that's the best way I would say it. So yeah, this thunder gun like weapon hits both Lokis, and I like this dynamic at the beginning, because essentially they are saying these two are going to need to work together, and both of their plans, while different, failed. One, the Lady Loki tried to break down the door, which she did, but she got shot by the thunder gun. And then Loki goes over and he tries to pretend to be her, the lady that's holding the thunder gun. He tries to pretend to be her husband that is no longer around. So they both backfire, and this is kind of a theme throughout this episode. They find out through this lady that they're going to need tickets. They're going to have to get, on board this train to go to this place called the Ark, and the Ark is a spaceship that's going to take them out of this planet. So that's essentially the mission moving forward, moving on throughout this episode. So that is what they try to do. But of course, the meteorites are coming down. It is not a good environment. It's not safe. And so they're really going to have to try to be crafty here. And what they do is they basically show up. They see all these people in line that are waiting for this train that either have tickets or don't have tickets and are waiting. They see that the people that have tickets that are rich are being let on, and the poor people are not. However, Loki has a plan up his sleeve. Instead of trying to enchant everyone, he is going to do his usual impersonation where he dresses up as one of the guards. Again, the dynamic I love here, because Loki doesn't think about the next step of that said plan. And of course, Sylvie is on it. So he basically tries to dress up and say that he's taking her onto the train. The guy turns them away, basically. And so Sylvie is one step ahead and is ready to enchant him, which she does. He agrees because he was enchanted, and he lets them on board. While on board, we get a lot of new stuff here. Very interesting stuff, might I add. The lamenting process. And this goes into, the fact is they're on the train. We get a funny moment where Loki says he can't ride backwards on a train. And we also get another funny moment where Sylvie basically says she can't have her back against any doorway, which there's doors on both sides. So we see that. And right off the bat, this kind of reminds me of like James Bond type of stuff. Like clearly something's a little off here. But, we move forward, with this. They're sitting at a table on the train as it's leaving. And, Loki is basically talking to Sylvie and trying to figure out if he can trust her. So they start talking, of course, and they even have somewhat of a moment. It's actually pretty interesting. Now Loki is going to bring up his past. He's going to bring up Frigga, his mom, or his adopted mom, and how she basically taught him the magic that he possesses. But what we find out with this variant in Lady Loki, aka Sylvie, is that she didn't have the same past. She was basically living all of what Loki lived, but instead without her mother. So that's a big thing here that I think, was said, is that's why she has more of the edginess to her. That's why she's a little, rough around the edges. That's why she's a little more aggressive, and Loki's more calculated and, still does have somewhat of a heart, is because Loki got that from Frigga. And of course, Sylvie didn't have Frigga, so that didn't happen. So they discuss that. They actually have an interesting scene where Sylvie even asks, if he has a lover and, prince or princess. And so I found this interesting because it just confirms what I already, suspected because of Norse mythology. The best way to put it is that Loki in Norse mythology is a fluid, character. Loki sexuality is fluid, and Loki's gender is fluid. So Loki can turn into whatever. And in case you didn't know, Loki turned into a horse to basically create the six-legged horse that Odin rides. But either way, the fact that, the MCU included that was pretty cool. And we did see, of course, on the TVA file that his sex was fluid, earlier on episode 1. So we do get that. We also get that Sylvie has somebody back home, a postman, her love interest. We'll see how that goes. They do describe, they start talking about love and things like that. And so the thing that I found really interesting here is that Loki starts kind of channeling his brother Thor. We see, Loki getting drunk, with the people on the train, singing all sorts of songs of Asgard, and even doing, paying homage to, the god of thunder when he slams down his glass and says more, I found that really interesting, and, that dynamic. But here's the thing, when he is drunk, of course, what ends up happening is this. You had someone that saw this guy come in dressed up as a guard, and then he looks over and clearly sees this guy not dressed up as a guard, causing a bunch of ruckus, and he creates this attention, which brings the guards over, and then we get a fight. And of course, gotta love combat, but that was not the time for it. We do get that, of course, in the trailer, that scene where he says bye-bye when he's kicking a guy out the window. We finally see that in this one. He does just that. Unfortunately, what ends up happening is because he kicked the window open, it gives them the idea to just toss Loki right out the window. And then, of course, Sylvie now sees this, knows that he has the tempad, and so that's going to be that. Now, why are they going on the Ark? Why were they going through the train? It wasn't just to get off the planet. It was also to charge that tempad, because the tempad is out of battery. They can't just have a portal just show up. To make matters worse, when Loki flies out of this train, he destroys the tempad. So at this point, they really feel stuck. And this feels like rock bottom here until they go into this city, because they're trying to get to the Ark. They're trying to power up the tempad with the Ark, and on top of that, get out of there, change history, because the time, of course, everything that's supposed to happen is going to happen, and so they're trying to change that. They go through this city that has all sorts of Cree lettering all over the walls, graffiti-wise and everything. I mean, I can't talk or read Cree, so I don't know anything about the Cree language. I couldn't tell you how many Easter eggs were on that wall. But I can tell you I thought it was pretty cool. And I feel like more and more throughout this whole thing, I've seen a lot of Blade Runner type of influence. So I thought that was pretty cool, especially this city. It's very cyberpunk-esque. So I thought that was a really cool moment as well. And we do get, of course, there's going to be guards, and they fight guards and things along that nature, but it starts getting pretty bad, and you could see the end of the world is approaching. They're trying to get on that arc as fast as they possibly can, and unfortunately they're not going to get there in time. Everything that they heard, Sylvie basically told Loki early on, hey, this is what's going to happen. We can try and change history, but this is what's going to happen. It's exactly what happens. The arc gets hit by the meteorite, cuts it right in half. Sylvie and Loki look on in disbelief. Sylvie walks back. Loki stands and just stares. And that's the end of the episode. So, my thoughts on the episode are this. I've seen some people out there saying this is filler content. Totally disagree. They would not spend as much as they did on this show for 6 episodes to have one of those be filler. So that it definitely was not filler. Here's what it did, okay? Everything that Marvel does is for a reason. So when you look at what they're doing with Loki, the first episode is to introduce you to the TVA. They're brand new, and they have to get... their goal is to try to get the TVA across to the viewer to make them realize this is different. And oh, by the way, those Infinity Stones that, Tony Stark and Natasha Romanoff and Gamora died over, yeah, they don't mean anything anymore. Like, they are as good as just being, whatever it was called, whatever they called it, paperweights. So that's that. The second episode is more about figuring out, because here's the thing, they show Sylvie a little bit in the first one, but they never show her face. The second one was about finding out everything, the variant, that's what it's called. This one is Lementis. It's about lamenting. This is about them having this connection. The thing is, with this rock bottom, not only does it create all sorts of mysterious questions about how the hell they're going to get out of where they're at, but it didn't do enough. It didn't tell enough story. We didn't learn enough about Sylvie. I know some people are complaining about that, but it's all done in a way on purpose to create this dynamic. So while you're watching this, you feel like everything's unsettling because we don't know enough about her. I think I'm right from episode 2. I think Sylvie this whole time is good. I mean, we find out that TVA, as she said, Loki tells her straight up what he was told from Mobius is that everyone at TVA, they're there. They're there forever. That's where they, and she's like, who told you that? That they're basically, that's ridiculous. They're variants. So, I mean, it makes sense. People go off the beaten path and they get sent to the TVA, they get their minds wiped, and they work for the TVA for the rest of their life. Where's the TVA located? That's another interesting thing. Is it located in the quantum realm? Who are the timekeepers? So you see, as we go into episode 4, you only have 4, 5, and 6 left over, and they've already gotten all these viewers, like myself and you included, that are watching this video. They've gotten all of us to critically think, and that's the thing, that's the point. It's not a filler episode. What it is that they want people to constantly think about this. They don't want to tell too much because they want a big reveal at the end. Is it going to be crazy with the timekeepers? Are they going to be more like Trevor, the Mandarin? Are they going to be like that big letdown about the Mandarin, the fake? Or is it going to be legit? Are we going to see Kang the Conqueror? By not giving us too much in episode 3, but also keeping us entertained at the same time and giving us a little bit, they did a beautiful job, I thought. It's a 42-minute episode. People are complaining there wasn't enough that was shown. It was a waste of an episode. I disagree. And I'm really excited for episode 4. And clearly, if you're that excited for the next episode, they clearly did something right in preparing you. So that is it for this. The first episode, I forgot what I gave it. I think I gave it like a 9.2 out of 10. The second one was the best. I would say that was a 9.7 out of 10. And this one, I don't really know what's going to go on with those time bombs. I think really just at the end of the day, they were for a distraction. I don't necessarily think... I think they're going to get the multiverse cleaned up before it ends up being like a multiversal war, whatever they were saying. But at the same time, you know, it could happen down the line in this series. And I think if Loki is not going to be in Thor 4, and they're basically making Loki... I mean, Loki's the biggest character right now in the MCU right now. In the here and now, everyone's talking about Loki because this show is awesome. So there's obviously going to be a season 2. But the question is this going to bridge in the MCU as far as putting him back in there? Or is he forever stuck in this TV show type of world? And, you know, obviously we know they cross, but Loki did die in Endgame. So the question is, do they bring him back? How do they bring him back? What happens? But it's all very interesting to me. If you guys like this video, be sure to subscribe, drop a comment. Let's discuss this. And, of course, hit that like button. Before I go, in case you guys don't know, I am writing as an MCU writer for Nightcast Media. Go over to Twitter. Go to @NightcastMedia and go give them a follow. And on top of that, you can find my work at nightcastmedia.com. And so that's pretty much what I've been doing as far as the MCU is concerned. I can't wait to put out some more content. It's going to be a lot of fun. Cannot wait for episode 4 Loki. I'm curious to see what you guys thought. But until next time, you guys take care. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Later.